Thank you. And Neil Mullarkey is my real name. A lot of people thought when I was joining the alternative comedy world in the 80s, it was a made-up name. Anyone want to suggest why it might have been a made-up name? Okay, no muttering, just shouting. So, because I'm not going to give you mics, it takes too long. What did you say? All that malarkey, good, thank you very much. And what's your name? Paul. Hello, Paul. So do you want to explain to everyone what all that malarkey means? All that nonsense, all that shenanigans. So Paul gives, give him a round of applause and he wins a Neil Mullarkey pen. Hooray. Thank you, Paul. Hooray. How exciting is that? So I'm going to talk about improv theatre. Has anyone ever seen an improv show? Hands up if you have. Great. Keep your hands up, then I get a sense of how many, because there are some people think, oh, Paul has, good. And Lee as well. So improv, let's say here, so for the lady there. Hello, what's your name? Nikki. And what happens in an improv show? They know the subject in the context. That sounds very grown up and difficult. Not something I could manage. Basically, the audience gives suggestions to the actors, and then we act it out there and then. So has anyone ever seen a show called Whose Line Is It Anyway? Whose Line? So that's the TV version. Now somebody's even thinking, no, I don't know what he means. But I was the same as you. Somebody said they saw an improv show at the Edinburgh Festival, a friend of mine, and they said they give suggestions to the actors, and immediately the actors make up scenes, stories, even songs. And I said, it must be a cheat, because I'd come from the world of scripted theatre. You write things, you try them out in comedy, rewrite them, see what the audience likes and doesn't like. But this is making theatre in the moment. And so my book is called In the Moment. And you heard a lot this morning from Natalia about being in the moment. But luckily, I extend that a little bit, because sometimes a moment can be 6 months, can be a year, can be the 5 days you've been here, where you begin to think, who am I? What is it I'm about? And so forth. Embracing uncertainty is what I'm going to talk about, because we don't know what the audience is going to give us, but we do have experience. So every Sunday I perform with the Comedy Store Players, comedystoreplayers.com, #ComedyStorePlayers. Feel free to put that on any social media you like. But I've been doing that, it'll be 39 years in October. We started with Mike Myers. Anyone know who Mike Myers is? Who is he? Gentleman over there in the grey shirt. He is now an American citizen, but he was Canadian, and he's also a British citizen. So he's Shrek, he's Austin Powers, and he's also that other one. Exactly. And just checking, because some of you are thinking, I don't know who the hell he's talking about. He's far too old, this man. And you're thinking, my reference is a Taylor Swift. Somebody on Twitter the other day said, am I the only person who's not been to see a Taylor Swift concert? And I was thinking, yes. And I've never heard one of her songs. At a quiz recently, there was a picture of something. And I said, I'd never even seen a picture of Taylor Swift. But now, all I see are pictures of Taylor Swift. So improv, and I use the word improv, is a type of theatre that we do every Sunday, and it does all over the world. I use the word improv because I want you to get thinking. This is a discipline. This is a form. This is like martial arts. This is like a sport. You practice, just like the 10,000 hours Natalia was talking about. You get better. Somebody says, this Sunday, you know, what are you prepared? Thinking I'm going to do jokes about Rishi Sunak or whoever. No, we don't do jokes. I said I've been preparing the last 38 and a half years for this, because it's about a discipline, about being in that moment with my colleagues. Yes, I have experience. Yes, I have done it before in that place at the Comedy Store. But there are very simple rules. I'm going to share them with you today. The rules of improv, and you might be surprised that I've been teaching this to people in business and organizations, leadership, for 25 years. And I came up with the 5 for when I was training actors to be improvisers. And then they're easily transferable to what you do, especially as you live in a VUCA world. Anyone remember what V stands for? U, C, A. Okay, every time you see an improv show, you'll see a VUCA moment unfolding and evolving. So improv is this form of theatre where the audience gives suggestions to the actors. And it started in the 1920s. And as I said, I'd never seen a show before I was in one, because Mike Myers was sitting selling tickets for a show I was in 1985, before Peter was born. Paul and Pete. Anyone here called Pete? Anyone here called Peter? When were you born? Don't tell us, but it was sometime after 1985, or maybe not. But Mike was selling tickets because he'd heard of the group I'd heard of Second City, which he had been in. Anyone heard of Second City Theatre? Who's that? Hello, who are you? Alison. Good, I can remember that. It's my wife's name. So Alison, how have you heard of Second City? That's the right answer. So, great. You can see how wonderful that was. Alison hadn't got the answer, but we could deal with it. We could deal with it. Wasn't it great? And because I did what I did, it was fine, wasn't it? And that's part of what I'm getting you to start to think about, is what is your role? Because dare I say, do we all agree with the theme of this week, Beyond the Horizon, leading with clarity and confidence in changing times? Clarity, I'm going to think about that word later. Clarity, clarity. So Second City Theatre Company, they started, it was a social worker in 1920s Chicago, and she was helping children. Anyone here work with children? So she was giving them chance, these exercises to help them speak up. Many were non-native speakers. And she was helping them have confidence. She was helping them to feel they could speak up in class, which was often a problem. And her son saw the exercises she was creating and thought that could work as a form of theatre. So by 1959, he'd created Second City Theatre, from which many comedians, writers, performers, directors, producers, and executives have come. The former chief executive of Twitter is a graduate. You tend to do an improv class like we might do a tennis class or whatever, French class or pottery class. Improv is much more part of the culture in North America. But 1959 is when Second City started. I'd heard of it because of Saturday Night Live. Anyone heard of Saturday Night Live in America? And specifically a movie called The Blues Brothers. Anyone seen that? And I loved it. So I found out that John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd had come from Saturday Night Live, and then they'd previously come from Second City. So Second City is where this all started, this improv technique, improv where you make up scenes and stories. And actually, I'm going to ask you, clarity. Does anyone have clarity in their lives? In some areas. So Natalia, for example, is leaving at noon because her train is at 1. Does anyone have clarity in terms of there's a meeting on a Monday at 10? Okay. What else do you have clarity about? Paul, you said some things. Where do you have clarity? Not sure. That's fine. Meeting the kids and dropping them off. Excellent, right. Yes, that tends to be the only clarity we have. A friend of mine called Dominic Holland, anyone heard of him? He's a stand-up comedian. And he said he was having a drink with a friend who didn't have children. Dominic Holland, by the way, is the father of Tom Holland. Anyone know who he is? Okay, so he put him into drama classes and eventually he ended up being Superman. It's quite a great story he tells. Sorry? Who cares? There you go. Sometimes the mistake is the right thing. Anyway, he said he was having a drink with a friend on a Thursday evening who didn't have children, and the friend said, so what are you up to this weekend? And Dominic said, driving mostly, because he has 4 children. And the guy said, where are you driving? What are you doing? I said, I don't know. I get given a spreadsheet on a Saturday morning. So that's where we get clarity, and a spreadsheet is clarity. But how much? And today's theme is about well-being. Natalia was helping brilliantly think about our body, our brain. Are we in the moment? Are we not? Are we actually present? Are we overthinking the future? Are we ruminating on the past? But clarity, does anyone feel bad as a leader when you fail to create clarity? Do you beat yourself up about it? So one of the things I'm going to get you to think about is, when is clarity good? When is clarity actually not so good? Because I know that Ian talked the other day about leadership. Sometimes you're in the dance, sometimes you're on the balcony. Do you get a different view when you're on the balcony? Do you want to be on the balcony all the time? Owen said he loves nothing more than visiting schools every fortnight. And so this is the dynamic you have to worry about. How much am I on the balcony? How much am I not? So that's the idea of confidence and clarity. I'm going to help you have confidence when there is no clarity, or there isn't much clarity. And the improv thing is very much, how do we create scenes and stories collectively? Collaboration is the thing. In a world of uncertainty, how do we do that? And rule 1, and we're picking up from this morning's session, and indeed other sessions I see, is a verb. It begins with L. What do you think the verb might be when you're doing improv? Listen, okay? What's your name? In the green top. Yes. Did you say listen? Okay, well then give Sarah a round of applause. She wins a Neil Mullarkey pen. There you go. That's an easy pen to win, I would say. Listen. So if I'm on stage and there are two of us, every Sunday there's 6 people, but normally it's 2. We start with 2 on stage. We say to the audience, give us a suggestion for the next scene, because we're not doing stand-up comedy. Stand-up is one person doing mostly prepared material. She or he is directly addressing the audience. We're playing scenes and little stories. So we might ask the audience, where can we set our next scene? And they might say hospital. And so we start a scene. I might say, good morning, doctor. And the other person might say, good morning, nurse. And we talk about the idea of an offer. Offer. So what's the Welsh for offer? Great. I forgot to say boroda. Diolch. So an offer is something somebody gives you, you can do something with. So if I say, good morning, doctor, they're going, great, I'm a doctor, I can help you. Good morning, nurse. But equally, we have choices. On stage, we have choice. You have choices in life. Remember, I loved what Natalia said about that moment between stimulus and response, that moment to think, oh, what's their perspective? Why are they saying that? Because if we don't have that moment, we think from our own perspective. And if we thought about the other person's perspective, that space that Viktor Frankl talked about, we may not adjust. We may stick to our own script. So if I go, good morning, doctor, the other person might go, oh, good morning, Mr. Johnson, I see your leg's better. So what's the offer there that I've given her or him? Patient and also leg. And their job is to go, right, they've given me that. I've got to make their idea work. And this is the profound thing in improv. It's not about how do I win at their expense. It's how do we make the other person look good. Somebody reviewed my book from the Financial Times and said, what a radical idea in organizations. Make the other person look good. But if you're both doing it, it works. So, good morning, doctor. Good morning, Mr. Johnson. I see your leg's better. Leg, how can I make that work? Leg, yeah, my leg is better. I'm playing football. Then this person goes, right, football, that's the offer. How do I work that? Football, yes, I heard you scored 3 goals at the weekend. Is that how it worked for when you saw an improv show? What was your name again? Nikki, how did it work? Was it like that? They were kind of bouncing off? They were trying to work with the other person's idea, trying to move their idea forward. So the first rule of improv is a verb beginning with L. What is it? The next one is a word beginning with A, which means accept. So it's listen and accept. L for, A for, great. And G for give. Give an offer to make their offer work, to build up their idea. So actually, a lot of this is being so in the moment. We call it intentive listening. You've done some mindful listening, and I hope you enjoyed the unmindful listening. It's a great exercise, isn't it? We're going to say, what's she said? What's the offer? How can I build on that? On the other hand, what happens if it goes like this? Good morning, doctor. And this person says, I'm not a doctor. We call that a block. We try not to block, but it happens sometimes. And basically, often we say, that's not a block, it's just a left field offer. Has anyone ever experienced a block in life, at home, from a colleague? Yes, you're saying yes, I'm going to come down to you. What's your name? Alice. Alice, what was the block like? Can you give me an example? Trying to do anything with HR department. Okay, good, good. And now, isn't it lovely how helpful people from HR are? Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because maybe they've got some things they have to think about. Because what is it you do, Alice? You don't know. Okay, may I just, let's at least find it. Swansea University. All right, you just ponce about and take a sabbatical every 3 years. Is that right? You're not an academic. You do some proper work. Oh, right, okay. So what is it you do then?
I work with young people in schools and communities from disadvantaged communities.
Hoping that they might come and study university? Okay. So when you go to HR saying, I want to, have a bouncy castle and go crazy, they're saying, oh, no, health and safety.
More, I want to employ this student to do some work for me. Oh, no, you can't
You can't just pay that person, but then if you don't pay them, you can't employ them. Alice, have you no idea?
None at all.
No, but you see, they're thinking, we're giving you an offer such that the reputation of the university is not adversely affected. And other employees don't go, hang on a minute, that's just some school leaver. Why are they being employed when I'm a professor of big things? Or whatever. But you can see what I mean, is the block is often in the eye of the beholder. So a friend of mine called Rob Poynton, he wrote a book called Everything is an Offer. The idea that whatever happens is something, if you're nimble enough and attentive enough, you can use it to move things forward. So I mentioned this to one of my chums in the Comedy Store Players. He said, you could write a book called Everything is a Block. It's how you take it, how you use it, or don't. Oh, she would say that. She's in HR, which is a very comfortable place to be, isn't it, Alice? What do they say about you, Alice? She's in outreach. Oh, dear, she's wanting more money, more weird stuff. Can't she just do the job properly?
They like me, weirdly.
But I'm teasing you. I'm making up complete stories that may accord nothing with reality. But the idea of a block and an offer, again, is essential to our view of the world. Because if I go, good morning, doctor, and they go, I'm not a doctor, we try not to do a block, but actually our improv discipline that I've been learning for 38 years means we go, that's not a block, that's just an offer in disguise. How can I build on that idea? What's with the white coat? Oh, exactly. Or you're not a doctor. Well, I'm not a patient. I come here to the hospital every day just to hang out. And you work in the NHS, don't you, madam? What's your name? Indu. And I do a lot of work with the NHS, and they say, actually, some people do come to hospital for no good reason. And I could see there's food there, there's warmth, there's drama. Everyone's nodding down here. Is that your job, just shoving them out the door? But what I've done there is I've taken the block of I'm not a doctor and made it into an offer of I'm not what I appear to be. I've taken your words and framed it. And actually, there's a great phrase I love from George Herbert Mead in 1935. He said, the meaning of a gesture is in the response. Whatever you said, it's how I take it. And have you ever had a friend or a colleague who says, no, don't take it that way? Well, I've already taken it that way. And you know when somebody says, I'm not being funny, but you're an idiot. Well, somebody said to my wife once, I'm not being funny, but I thought you at least, and they said a number 10 years older than she really is. And that wasn't funny. Why did you have to say it? What was the point of you giving us that data? And saying I'm not being funny is a bit like saying, with respect, building on that, let me diss your idea big time. So listen, accept, and give. I think I've talked enough, don't you, Alice? Yeah. So that means, Alice, I need a volunteer, and you... Actually, I need 3. What do you... Paul and Alice, I need one more as well. We could have Nikki, we could have Indu, it depends. We could have Alison, it depends who you like to be. I could come closer. Alison saying, no way, because she's far away from me. Up you come over here. And they're going to play a little game. We just need one more volunteer. I reckon it could be Nikki. Thank you so much. Round of applause to Nikki, because, okay, so come here. They are going to do the improv exercise, the ultimate one. They're going to do one word at a time to create a story, to co-create a story. So come close. Do you know each other?
We met briefly yesterday.
Right, there's a bit of a frisson there, I can sense. No? Did she jump in the queue ahead of you? What's going on there?
No, I clocked that she's university and I'm also university.
Oh,
so
no.
there's a connection.
So
A different university.
Okay, but what do you do in university?
A different job, totally. I'm a program manager.
Program manager.
Yeah.
What do you do? Outreach, yes. So, do you think you're better than her?
Not at all.
Why not?
We'd have totally different disciplines and I barely know her. How can I judge?
How can you judge? Exactly. You took on board the premise of the question, didn't he? Okay, and Nikki, what do you, RCN Wales? I'm presuming that's Royal College of Nurses. Yeah. And do you have a job in that place? What's the thing you do?
I'm a trade unionist.
Trade unionist, okay. See,
Good luck.
So you actually do no work at all.
Not much.
You
no.
just stir it up a bit.
Yeah,
Is that
just
right?
create problems.
Yeah. Okay. What was that noise over there? What did that mean? Are you other trade unionists or people who have to HR? What if how? I imagine you get on well with HR though. Okay. So we have our lovely friends Paul and Alice and Nikki. Aren't they fab? Yes. Okay. So they're going to do a simple game. You're going to do this in a minute. They're going to tell a story one word at a time. So they're going to have to listen, accept, and then give offers to move the story forward. I could hear Nikki just going, oh God. Now, what I'm sensing now, think about the meta story going on here. They're a bit nervous, aren't they? You desperately want them to win, don't you? Yes. Think about it. I've probably done this before. I know they're going to win. Pretty soon, I'll be having to drag them off the stage. But by them going into a place of uncertainty, maybe it's not clear as well, but they're going to help you to learn, as well as getting some great learning themselves. I don't normally do a side coach of myself here, but I just thought it was interesting to rekindle the idea of uncertainty, of clarity, of confidence. So they're lacking a bit of confidence now, but pretty soon they're going to be having great confidence because I think they're going to listen to each other and they'll find the game because of your feedback. Rather wonderful. So they're going to tell a story. The day I went to... That's quite hard for me to say. Did you see Aberaeron? Aberaeron, is that a place? Aberaeron. My father grew up in Brecon, you see. So we used to come for our holidays in Porthcawl. And then Welsh people say, why are you doing that Portuguese accent? But anyway, Natalia's gone. Okay, so how do you feel about that? Do you know that place? No. You do? Oh, let's go the day I went to Porthcawl. That's easier. It's easier to say, isn't it? So start with, I went to Porthcawl, okay?
Okay.
Just one word at a time. I know you can do it.
I,
Went to.
Porthcawl,
Full stop.
I went
on,
a ride.
called,
Ah!
Full stop.
It.
scared,
The. Beep.
Beep.
out
Of. Me.
twice,
I.
My. Next.
pair,
Of. Ice creams.
went,
Melted.
They went melted, Alice. So this is the one doing outreach with students. And so could you see at any point, and you might have experienced it yourself, I think it's going to go that way. And does any of you know the name of a good ride? But frankly, the best name of a ride I've ever heard is, ah! And that came from a place of uncertainty, didn't it? But it came from a place of Alice saying, I don't mind. For the good of everyone in the room, I'm just going to say the first thing. I'm not going to judge myself. And actually, one of the gurus of improv is called Keith Johnson. And he said, you become a good improviser when you let go of the fear of being seen as mad, bad, or wrong. And I'm just remembering you, Owen, at the Ritz. You were told you were mad, bad, and wrong. But Mr. French Algerian, eating his own babies, said, okay, you can have 20 million. You went there for 10 minutes. And dare I say, sometimes innovation comes that way. Dare I say that much of your life will be just in a different space, getting on with stuff, spreadsheets, structures, scripts, let's get it right, let's get processes. And there are times when you want to be over here. And the challenge for you all is to know the dynamic. When do I go here? When do I go there? What's the uncertainty? How can I we want to create a bit of certainty even in the moments of uncertainty. What can we be clear about? And what are the moments when a bit of a lack of clarity could lead to innovation, could lead to collaboration? So, for example, when you said twice, you were thinking about the second ride, and you were thinking about your ice creams, weren't you? Yeah. So just notice what each of you thought one step ahead. So listening, we all know we actually are listening to our own inner voice as much as the external one. Now, frankly, you can't get rid of that. I imagine with meditation and mindfulness, you approach that where you have nothing in your mind, but actually most of us have a script. We have an idea of how we feel about Porthcawl, about roller coasters. We have a sense of what happens there. Also, did I hear the same people over there going, "Moo," when you said 2 words? The keepers of the rules. But interestingly, I let it ride because quite often what happens is the other people start doing 2 words. They knew it was 1 word, but because he got away with it, unconscious, oh yeah, that's what the norms are in this team now. But they didn't because they're so good. And you went back to being a good boy.
That's right.
But what I notice is that we tend to think in 3, 4, 5 word segments, don't we? And part of the game here is to try to still your inner voice, to really work with what the other people in your team gave. So what I want you to do is divide yourselves into groups of 3 or 4. So divide your table in half. If it's easier, borrow somebody from another table. 5 is too many, 2 is too few. So make 3 or 4, and you're going to, in a moment, I'll tell you what the starting situation is. Okay. Right? Do you know which team you're in? Shh. So, the complication now is you are going to do the story the day I went to the zoo. So start with, I went to the zoo. If you're going to give yourself some side coaching, what might you say to yourselves as a team? Things like, don't worry too far ahead. Just do 1 word. Do it quickly. Do it clearly. And you're all going to stand up as well. So stand up and get the energy going. You're going to carry on. You've warmed up nicely. So it's, I went to the zoo. Off you go. I went to the... Okay. Let's pause for a minute. Right. 2 things. Here's a little tip. Keep the sentences short, because otherwise the grammar gets impossible. So you have, an offer could be, da-da, finishing the sentence, or ba-da, starting the next sentence. If you want to say full stop, that's okay, but it's a bit of a cheat. Who feels their story's a bit of a mess? Hands up, okay, great. Well, let's just see. And you may disagree. You may disagree, but what I want you to do now is carry on your story. There may be some great offers there. But if you're going this way, now go the other way, because maybe that person on your left is annoying you because she keeps saying the wrong thing. Okay, off you go. Okay. Shh. Right. So, I'm noticing some energy emerging from several groups every now and again. Yeah, we did it. So this group here, what just happened that meant you went, yeah, hurrah? You were all on the same page. Who's thinking, I wish we were in that group? We're not even in the same room, let alone page, book, library. Who's really annoyed with somebody who keeps derailing your brilliant ideas? Who feels they could have done with an outside eye, a leader to direct things? Nicola, I made you the leader of this group. Your immediate reaction is, oh, I don't know leadership. What are you doing at this conference? Maybe you had no leadership and now you have. Have you been filled up with leadership now? 4 days of leadership. Now, as a matter of interest, Nicola, how was it for you? Because I asked a few groups of 4 for one person to step out, and she no longer was in the team. The other 3 carried on, and he or she could direct. They might say speed up. They might say more giraffe. They might say shorter sentences. And what's interesting is that's sort of relevant to being on the balcony versus in the dance. So, Nicola, did you like being on the balcony? Not really.
No.
So you don't have leadership potential at all. But did you miss being in the gang?
I did, yes.
Brilliant. Okay. Does anyone else in their real job miss being in the gang? I was working once with the head of social services at a council. he said, I miss being in the gang. So I go off and back and just hang around the office and wander around. How do you think his team felt? Get off! Leave us alone! Get back to your balcony! And he said, I really hate it. I have to wear a tie. I have to go to corporate centre. We have to talk about, dog poo and street lamps. And we kind of came out of it, which is actually, sometimes you've got to put on a tie, metaphorically or physically. Sometimes you've got to deal with the head office stuff. Your very presence back in the gang changed the dynamic. So Nick, you were one of the leaders in that group. How did it feel to be outside the group but having some possible power over them?
It was okay. I didn't really have to interject because...
Which could be brilliant leadership. I did say to the three people, you may do nothing, which may be the best thing ever. A Danish PhD guy wrote to me once saying his study was about the irony of leadership. How often is the leader the thing that unites everyone because everyone hates them equally? We all agree we hate the leader. Nick, I don't think that was in your case, but I interrupt. How was your style?
Well,
yeah, did you butt in?
I felt like I wanted to interject just because.
Yes, just because. I wanted to interject just because. In my book, which is available on Amazon, but I can also give you the 20% code off. I found research that in the first year of being a manager, people organized 29% more meetings than in subsequent years. Because that feels like what I should be doing, isn't it? Where's the thing where leading happens? Oh, in front of other people, in meetings. And it's interesting, you were kind of saying, should I, shouldn't I? And that's a daily dynamic, Nicola. Did you butt in? Did you not? Did you think, if I don't say anything, I'm not doing my job?
Yeah, I wanted to help them out.
You wanted to help them out?
Yeah.
And let's do some 360 here. How was she as a leader?
She was really good.
Oh, come on.
She didn't bother us that much.
She didn't bother us that much. Okay, we have a definition of leadership. Are you being kind, though?
No.
Okay, we might ask others. So have a seat and just talk to your group. And before you sit down, Catherine, I'll just check in with you. Because how was your leadership style?
Let them get on with it, and when I saw them struggle a little bit, maybe just
So
some
let them get on.
suggestions.
So yes, let's just check in with your team, because gonna be honest, did you want her to step in?
She was encouraging.
She was encouraging.
Yeah.
Okay.
She liked the sound effects.
She liked the sound effects. Interestingly, notice how sound effects could be a thing because of you, Alice. You created a culture of sound effects being okay. Now, you were being very kind. Be honest. Was she a bit rubbish?
No, she was great.
How do I know? If I want some boxes to be...
She gave us some ideas.
She gave ideas?
Yeah.
Were they when you were struggling? Were there too many ideas?
When we were struggling. She
Right.
came up with a really good idea.
Okay, so they've been far too nice. How do you feel?
When she wasn't part of the group, it allowed us to make her the subject of the story.
She became in the story, interestingly, okay. How many organizations and teams where the story is we can all agree this about them, the senior leadership or whoever? So just right now, just a couple of minutes, I already got them to think about this. Think about the moments in the story where you felt frustrated or delighted. That group said, oh, we're all on the same sheet. How marvelous. And I asked you, Alice and Nikki, how did you feel in the group? Were you, because there seemed real energy here. I felt it was psychologically safe, not because you were all having the same idea, but because it was okay to have left field ideas. Tell me more about how it worked.
Yeah, we to start off with, I think we went down a quite sensible route and we were able to sort of feed off each other, and then we sort of went on quite a random tangent then, which just made us get more silly, really, which made it lots more fun.
Okay. Whereas, was anyone here thinking, it's gone off piste here? This is about the day at the zoo. And these are the people who've taken us somewhere else. And isn't it interesting? Because even this childlike game, I went to the zoo, a day at the zoo. Somebody hears, I better stay at the zoo because it's a whole day at the zoo. Somebody else is saying, well, that's just the beginning. Even a simple instruction like that can be differently interpreted, can't it? How many times have you sent an email or even said something and you go, why did they think that? That's not what looking at it again, I realize that was the interpretation. So what I say isn't necessarily what you hear. And that's why Natalia's idea of just taking a moment to think about it from their perspective. And even in the game, did you feel frustrated or delighted? For example, Catherine was delighted when somebody said office party. She didn't have the idea of party, but when office party came along, she was delighted. And does anyone here listen to or like or play improvised jazz, improvised music? You do, Nikki. Okay, tell me more about your, do you play?
It's as uncomfortable as it is doing here. I play the harp. I play jazz on the harp.
Right.
And I've been to many workshops. I do try to do improv. I've been to many workshops where it's like, right, it's you now, and you absolutely panic, but then you do it and you're really proud of yourself because actually you just made it up on the spot, it sounded okay, and you got away with it.
Right. Well, can I ask, are you soloing on the harp or other people filling in?
Normally I don't. Normally I'm with a group. We've got a community group, but in those workshops you'd be soloing.
Oh, right. Okay, that's
And then
tough.
feeding off each other.
Feeding off each other. So actually there's a professor at a business school in America called Frank J. Barrett. And he's a business school professor, but also a jazz improviser. And he talks about comping. Anyone know what that is? Comping. It's actually a shorthand for accompanying. Sometimes in music, your job is just to keep the rhythm going. Let her go with the solo. I'll just keep going the boom, boom, boom. And sometimes as a leader, dare I say, you're not doing the solos, you're keeping the rhythm going. I think it's a daily dynamic, hourly maybe. Do I step in? Do I step back? How much do I tell them what to do? Nick, you felt this. Nicola, it's kind of, should I tell them? Do I sort out the problem? Do I give clarity? Or do I let them kind of find their own clarity? And that's what you were delighted about over there. In fact, Frank J. Barrett's book is called Say Yes to the Mess. Say yes to the mess, because when you're creating ideas or forming a team, maybe there's kind of, if I impose clarity too early, perhaps I'm stifling possibilities. If I do it too late, it becomes a mess. And chaotic mess. And that is a momentary thing, it feels. The moment could be a day, a week, a year, or an actual moment in a meeting, dare I say, because you went, ah, and I mentioned it again, sound effects became one of your themes. So just in your little groups, just talk about a little bit about how the game worked, frustrations, delights, so forth. Off you go. I just heard a conversation with our 3 volunteers here, which I think might be worth just replaying, because I imagine some of you had a similar thing, which is, I've got a good idea. When do I shove it in? Or should I hold back? And Alice, it was about your bananas, I think.
Yes, we were talking about monkeys and I was like, right, I want to get bananas in. But every time I set it up for bananas, we went off in a different direction. So I had to sort of keep putting the loop back in. I'm like, I've put the word supermarket in, perhaps we can get bananas in now. And sort of.
And were you aware that she was trying to shove this in? Or did you just think she was odd? Or did you have your own?
Oh, he had his own mission.
What was your mission then?
I was trying to make it a little bit naughty to sort of
A little
flick
bit
it a
naughty.
different way.
For
But I
naughty Nikki, I
Yeah.
know.
But I kept getting the and it and
And
on. It was like,
which is
I can't
it's the
quite
comping.
get my, yeah.
Without somebody comping, and in the best teams, that role rotates. It's not just the leader doing solos, but equally, it's not the leader doing no solos. Sometimes you've got to step in, give your banana, or find out what it is their hope for the story. So let's give them a round of applause. You win a Neil Mullarkey pen. Thank you. There you go. I just put it on the floor. So, what I want you to think about is, what was the first thought you had when I said the day I went to the zoo? Was it an animal? Hands up. Animal, yeah. Okay, keep your hands up. Okay, monkey, giraffe, elephant. Put your hand down if I've mentioned your one. Giraffe, elephant, panda, penguin, tiger, lion. Ooh, what's yours? A rat, of course it was. Do you work in HR? No, okay. Because only HR can afford to go to Burma or whatever. What was yours? Gorilla? Gorilla, okay. Did you find that out in the story, by the way? Were you in the same gang? Okay. Because who else had a zoo in mind? Sorry, not a zoo, a particular zoo, like Berlin Zoo, Singapore Zoo, London Zoo, yes. And does anyone know the book called Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman? Owen, have you read it? You claim not to have read any business books. Somebody made me read it, okay. It's the kind of book that somebody makes you read, you go, oh, and you don't get through the whole thing. But basically, it's a very simple idea, a very thick book. Thinking fast and slow. We have two modes of thinking, one of which isn't really thinking. If I say zoo, you go elephant. If I say zoo, you think Berlin Zoo, London Zoo, Bristol Zoo. System 2 is, oh, hang on, what's the gorilla going to do? Do they like that zoo? Maybe, what about the ice cream that's happening earlier? Maybe there's a banana involved. So getting the idea, there's two types of thinking. And my research found that we're in system 1 98% of the time. System 1 is the stuff you've thought before. Remember what Natalia said about cut and paste? We've had that thought. We know what stuff is. The habit, bring it in, save time, because the brain doesn't like to go to system 2 because it requires work. There's lack of clarity. So for example, system 1 is easy math. What's 3 times 4? Okay, learnt response, but now automatic. System 2 is 976 times 324. Come on, there's a pen. Somebody said hard. Sometimes people go, oh, maths, which really upsets me. My mother was a primary school maths teacher. My wife is a maths graduate. I think maths is a human right. If you can't understand compound interest, you'll struggle in the world. Anyway, but they, from an early age, they had a maths teacher or a moment that was not empathetic. And they go, oh, maths, that's not for me. And it's really upsetting to me. But actually, if anyone can remember the 2 numbers, or even one of the numbers, you get a pen. 9, go on. Go on. And the other one? No, who said 976? It was you, Indu, thank you. So 976324. So actually, one time I was working with Unilever, who make Dove and Persil and stuff, and this guy from Consumer Insight, he told me the answer about 2 minutes later, 316,224, in case you were thinking that. And I thought, what a genius. And I thought, hang on a minute. That meant for 2 minutes he wasn't listening to a word I said. Am I right? So what are your system 1s? What I mean by that is the bias, the filter, the assumptions. That's why I like to tease people about their job. HR, they're all like that, aren't they? No, they're not. University people, they're all the same. No, they're not. So how many things in your organization are this system 1? And of course, system 1 helps us because it's a habit, a filter. We tend to know which font to use, do we? We tend to know how to write a proposal. We tend to know how meetings go. Who here has meetings that tend to be an hour? Toyota default their outlook, so meetings are either 45 minutes or 25 minutes. Isn't that a good idea? Because otherwise you've got to go to system 2 and undo the hour thing. What are the system 1s that are helping you, i.e. the habits, the filters, the unwritten rules? We all know about that, the culture that Owen talked about, that we all know that's where you go for a cigarette. We all know not to talk to the CEO, Owen, because he's a bit scary. We all know that meeting's a bit rubbish. Does anyone have that? A weekly meeting, we all come out saying, I knew it was going to be rubbish, and it was rubbish again. And I'm thinking, it's your responsibility. Even if it's not your meeting, speak up. Say, could we do it better? Could we do it shorter? Could we do it in a different way? And of course, what I'm saying is that habits help us. For example, does anyone actually go to work at all anymore? Anyone go? Okay, so do you stand at the same place on the platform or drive the same way? Saves time, saves mental energy, but then what are the other things that if you looked to disrupt the patterns, and what's disrupting our patterns now? AI, changes in patient expectations, all sorts of things, geopolitics, technology, and so forth. So, improv is about the idea of the offer. Treat something as an offer. What she said, what he's giving you. Sometimes the offer is non-verbal. Yeah, that's a great idea. What's the offer I'm giving there? No, it's not. So look at the energy behind the offer. Sometimes I look, and this is where you might think about strategy. Where's the energy going? That's what you said. Remind yourself of what you really love about the job. I don't think that's a bad thing to think. Where's the energy in the organization? We all like that thing. Could we do more of that? Of course, that may be a bad thing because we're neglecting patients. But the idea of listening with intent. It's a bit like mindful listening, but it's stilling your own voice. You can't help but think, can we have the bananas in this story? But what's actually emerging in the team? Because, for example, who felt they would like a better brief from me? Because I said, the day I went to the zoo, would you have liked the day I went to the zoo and gave some bananas to the gorilla? Would you have liked that? Why not? Prescriptive. What if I'd said, just do a one-word story, whatever you feel like? How would you have felt? It's hard. Sometimes a constraint is a liberation, but it just depends how much. So my friends at Ashridge Business School talk about minimal structure, maximum autonomy. How much do I give you guide rails, and how much do I let you find it? People will always tend to do stuff they've had some suggestion in creating. Doesn't mean on the top you don't just say whatever you feel like it, but when does prescriptive become autocratic? And one of the things, I was working at Google recently, and I was talking about this whole idea about servant leadership. And this guy said, yeah, that's great. Listening, working with what they give you, seeing what emerges, picking up their ideas, just like Catherine did, seeing what emerged, stepping in when you need to. And he said, actually, sometimes my team just say to me, please tell us what to do. And I think this might demonstrate some of the things I'm talking about. So in your exercise just now, well, there's a degree of uncertainty. How long will it last? What's the point? And disagreement. I want to get the bananas in. No, I want to be naughty. So what would you call A, that area A? Safety, comfort. What would you call C? Chaos. Good. Definitely chaos. What would you call B? Bit of uncertainty, bit of disagreement. Balance. Now, the thing is, you could say for A, certainty, harmony. Some people say to me, boredom. And it depends how you feel, where the team is. Somebody once said in a mobile phone conference I was teaching at, they said, A, you mean North Korea? I think even in North Korea, there's disagreement, but it's not spoken of. So this is a model that I borrowed from a man called Ralph Stacey. Can you see that? So chaos for sure, top right. Less ambitious, easier to execute, bottom left. Doesn't mean it's wrong, but that space is where you as a leader, you know a good answer. You've been there before, you've had expertise. So it's a little bit like, Ian was talking the other day, balcony in the dance. Nicholas said you wanted to be in the dance. Nick, you know, how much you feel like it's less fun to be not in the team, but actually as a leader, you may have to be stepping out. So what I'm saying there is, this is a guy called Ronald Heifetz who talks about adaptive leadership. So bottom left, it tends to be a technical problem, technical challenge. It's very likely you've seen it before. You can use your expertise. Why not just tell us the answer? Go to the zoo, have the bananas, come home. Fine. Then, ambitious, difficult to execute, much more relies on lack of clarity, actually. And you as the leader has to hold the space. Actually, to get the right answer, we may have to play a different game. And your job, the man who came up with this calls it a productive zone of distress, which is, it's uncomfortable, but actually it's productive. And your job as leaders to hold us and guide us and say, we'll get there. There's something certain about this. It'll finish. We'll get there. Something will happen. But right now, we just need to work with how do we get the bananas in? Or maybe we shouldn't be going with the bananas. So in bottom left, the leader tends to know the answer. Middle bit, the leader's job is almost to curate the questions. Does anyone feel like there are issues like that for you now? And are you beating yourself up a bit by, I wish I had clarity? When I show this to leaders, they go, phew, it's okay that I don't know the answers to everything. In fact, my job is to make my team feel comfortable with that. It doesn't mean I go in every day and say, I've got no idea, you guys get on with it. But you create the environment that doesn't go as far as chaos. And in fact, there's a brilliant leadership writer called Herminia Ibarra who wrote a book called Act Like a Leader, Think Like a Leader. Act like a leader, think like a leader. Herminia Ibarra, quite hard to spell. Anyway, the title is Act Like a Leader, Think Like a Leader. Anything you notice about that? You do the acting first. Some of your job sometimes is just kind of step into the shoes of a leader, and you have to work with other people's system one of what a leader is. Have you ever had that where somebody says, but you're the leader, you should know the answer? Or, but my last leader didn't do that. So some of the assumptions you're working with are theirs. So there we go. That's another way. Anyone want to tell me what the difference between complicated and complex is? More issues? I would say, so this is Ralph Stacey, but slightly easier to follow. I would say, does anyone have earbuds that are attached to wire that you put in your phone, or did have? And then you put them in your bag, pocket, and then they come out. How are they? All tangled. But if you slowly say, this is the one end, this is the other, you can untangle them, can't you? That's complicated. If the wire or the bits at the end said, no, we don't want to be untangled. We want to be over there. And then you untangle a bit and they start tangling themselves up again. That's complex. It's the unknown unknowns. You try and solve a problem and you're not thinking systemically. And you tell HR, I'll do whatever you want. And then other departments go, well, hang on a minute. What I mean by complex problems is that there's no straightforward answer for a multitude of stakeholders. And part of this is the productive zone of distress, saying, how are we going to solve this? Rather than, and this is why, Nicola, you don't want to be a leader. Too often it says, you're the leader, you sort it out. And the leader's job sometimes is to say, I'm one person. What are you going to do about it? And you frame it safely, but actually you want to open up different ideas. So just back to the improv thing, a block could be an offer in disguise. Sometimes, you know that person who's a bit resistant to change? We've seen it before. We want to ignore them. We want to say, forget her, him, he's difficult. But actually, if you're going to get their opinion, if you can get their input, get them to believe, your project, your idea, your change will become all the more powerful. So I'm going to do a little game now called Yes and, okay? Anyone done yes and as a thing ever? Hands up if you have. Okay. So can I ask you, the lady over there, in what context was it? Was with me? Okay, that's right. It was Moya, wasn't it? And you, sir, how was it for you?
Quite powerful indeed.
Okay, good. That's the right answer. Because yes and is kind of listen, accept, and give all in one exercise. In fact, I've done this in Wales before, and I believe in Welsh it's yi-a. So yes is I accept your idea, and is I build on it. Now, we never say yes and on stage, and I suggest don't say it in real life. But the idea being, we as improvisers use it as a verb. I'm yes-anding you. So that was the powerful thing. What's your name, sir? Jeremy. It's building on the other person's idea, saying, whatever is in my mind, I've got bananas, but what do you want? And if they're doing it as well, that co-creative, collaborative, navigating through uncertainty, indeed, accepting moments of less than clarity could find us a really innovative way out towards the other end. So we need a volunteer. I don't know if you'd like to play, Jeremy, having done it once before. Okay, round of applause to Jeremy. So, number one. Okay, what do you do, Jeremy, by the way?
Work for the Welsh Government.
Welsh Government. By the way, isn't it interesting? I wish somebody would do a PhD in this. Whenever you have name tags, it always goes the wrong way round. Why is that? Because somebody once said, you did conferences sometimes where it's the same on both sides. Wouldn't that be easier? Is that more technically difficult? Okay, Jeremy, we're going to play yes and, okay? So we are two people in a certain job. What's your occupation? Anything at all? HR. I'm not sure that's, we'll do that one in a minute, by the way. Let's have another one, just in case. Say again? Social work, even more dangerous. Okay. What do you actually do? You work for the government, so...
In bilingualism, promote the Welsh language.
In bilingualism, okay. Forgive me. I'm going to struggle if we do that in Welsh.
That's fine.
Which is my bad. So why don't we have, what do you feel? Should we go social? I'm slightly concerned that we're going to focus on the content, not the process. Undertaker, thank you. We're both, thank you very much. And now you can go. I'll give you £5 later. What's your name, Undertaker lady? Thank you, Louise. Okay, we're both undertakers. Okay, so what you want to start with, hey, these new coffins are great, okay? That's your thing.
Okay.
By the way, this is something from improv. We always try and start our scenes with energy and positivity, moving forward on the front step, because a bad improv scene is, who are you? What are you doing? What's there? You do care about that? And how many meetings of yours start like that, with lack of energy, or you're on mute? or even worse, what are you doing here? You didn't accept the invite? So we try and start with energy. So I suggest if you're leading, and dare I say, sometimes if you're the leader of a team, don't be the one who's facilitating the meeting. Let somebody else have a go. See how they do it. Bring out different voices. Be more of an observer. Anyway, so we're both undertakers, and we'll do the yes and thing. Yes and, okay? So whatever your first line was, better coffins or something.
Acme Coffins have brought a great line out recently. Have you seen them?
Yes, and I think we'll get many more customers with these new exciting coffins.
The linings are
Wait a
really...
minute.
Oh.
If he misses, or I miss out the words yes and, can I just hear a murmur of disapproval? Let's just hear that. The thing was, Jeremy was doing it without saying the words yes and, which is stage 2. That's how clever he is. Okay, so yes, and I think we'll have many more customers.
Yes, and the linings are apparently really comfortable.
Yes, and I sat in one at the convention.
And how did that feel?
Yes, and it felt great. I can't wait to be dead.
Maybe I'll die on
Yes,
stage.
and-
Yes, and maybe I'll die on stage.
Yes, and the thing is, I was talking to Mr. Johnson the other day. He was on the way to the other funeral parlour. I managed to get him in, and he liked the look of this coffin.
Yes, and he told me that too.
Yes, and I spotted you having dinner with him last night.
Yes, and that's when he told me it.
Yes, and that meant I could have dinner with Mrs. Johnson.
Yes, and he knows.
Yes, and at last he can be with you and I can be with her.
Yes, and we're all happy.
Yes, and thank you, Jeremy. Brilliant, thank you so much. Thank you, that was lovely, thank you. Right, so did we love that? Yeah. Now the thing was, Jeremy, I don't know Jeremy. I think Jeremy's got a few things on his mind, by the way. He's been on his phone a bit, but if I'd said to Jeremy at 10 o'clock this morning, you and I would do a funny scene about 12:30, how would you have felt? Trepidatious. But what I would say is, there was one simple, clear rule. Just say yes and. Listen with intent. Not just listen passively, but consciously try and build on my idea. Okay? So what I want you to do is just point to the person next to you. This is really much better done in 2. So point at her or him. She's your partner. Okay? Do it. Find a 2. You might have to go to another table. Okay? So, has everyone got a partner? And I'm noticing, wonderfully, several people are going, should we stand up like last time? The answer's yes. Because energy. So remember, sitting is the new smoking. So get up, move about. So you're 2 police officers. Okay? Police officers. And your first line is, I've arrested Wilkins again. Off you go. Okay. Let's pause. So, that's that. So say thank you to your partner, Diolch. Okay. Oh, there's hugging going on. Marvelous. Okay. Sit down. And so what I noticed, there was 2 gorillas over here. And is it Craig?
Yeah.
Craig, when I came over, you paused a bit.
Yeah.
Stand up.
I didn't.
Why did you pause?
Because you were standing right next to me.
Yeah. Often leadership is just getting out of the way. Because you think, I better get it right for Daddy.
Yeah. That makes me pause as well, yeah.
But just me standing there made it harder for you. I stood too close as well, didn't I? So, Mike, you're the other gorilla, is that right? Because you show us how you were standing. Go on. You were standing like that, which is how I modelled police officer. Which, if you're old enough, you might remember Dixon of Dock Green. And it's interesting. Sometimes I ask women, what sex was your character? And they say, oh, man, just because Dixon was a man. So just be aware of just tiny things like that. Did any woman feel that, by the way? I don't know. It's unusual, but it's just the thing I noticed, that sometimes tiny little movements, words, asides will create bigger impulses than you might have realized. Just the way exactly that Alice allowed us to go, bruh, or ah. So what do you discover about Wilkins? What sort of person is Wilkins? You're laughing, madam. Hello. We better come to you then. So that's turned the wrong way as well. Just tell me your name. Stand up and then we have a nice close-up here. That's great. So the lighting could be not very good here. So what's your name? I don't want to touch.
My name's Martine.
Martine. So Martine, tell us about Wilkins in your story.
He wasn't very good with his dog.
We'll leave that. He wasn't very good with his dog. Okay, that might have deserved a pen had it been. So, first of all, what do you notice about Wilkins? What did most of you assume about Wilkins?
Criminal.
He's a criminal.
Yeah.
And he's a man.
Yeah.
Well, he has a he pronoun, at least. So, remember our system 1, system 2. Much of our life we're in system 1. Did anyone consider the possibility that Wilkins could be female? Did anyone consider the possibility Wilkins could be innocent? Did anyone find that Wilkins had a whole bunch of friends who were bad? Family? Yeah, okay. Remember, how powerful is system 1? When I was doing my degree, I did economics for 1 year, then did social and political science. I did a module called deviance, which is how we, as groups, otherize those who are not in the mainstream. And there are all sorts of reasons we do that. You know the topics, sexuality, etc. All sorts of reasons we have prejudice for people who are not like us. But even in this game, did anyone think that Wilkins could be female and innocent? Because this deviance course, we studied Foucault. Anyone come across Foucault? A slightly eccentric, very eccentric French philosopher, but he talked about labeling theory or amplification thesis. If I hear one thing about you, I label you. Just like HR. They're all the same, aren't they? No, they're not. It was a great lesson to learn at the age of 19, 20. Just because I know one thing about you doesn't mean I know everything about you. But our brain goes to system 1. Oh, you're an accountant. Oh, you're in government. Oh, you're in sales. Oh, you're an actor. How easy is it to thin slice the data? So there's a book called Thinking Fast and Slow. So the number of times we thin slice data and think, oh, that's what they're like. Librarians, all boring. Actors, all exciting. Well, let me tell you, that's not true. So we label people very easily. Now, of course, that saves time sometimes if we know their leader or their accountant or their this or their that. That helps us sometimes to get to the next level, but sometimes it restricts us. So I think even the word leadership is different for everybody, isn't it? Leader, the old thing was a man on a white horse. I'm the leader, it's military. Now we might go, they're at the back going, hey, hello everyone, I'll bring the picnic, it's all right. I'm teasing you, but models of leadership, almost I believe that everybody leads in their own particular way. And that's part of what Owen was saying, find who you are, dare I say. You may be directive, but then temper it. You may be unwilling to be directive, but there are times you may need to be that. Context, situational leadership matter. So what if I'd said to you, Wilkins is a woman and she was at the zoo earlier and had her passport stolen. So she's been arrested by mistake. Would that have changed your scene? That she's innocent, female, it's a problem. Now, so my next letter is E, to explore assumptions. How easy is it for us, especially to have unconscious assumptions? I see lots of things up there about unconscious assumptions. We don't even know the vibe we're giving. And also seeing from the Slido, people taking Natalia's work, we see one thing there, you see that thing. And the joy of that multiplicity of views, that diversity, is it's creative. On the other hand, when I don't pause for a moment when I'm talking to you and think about your perspective and tell you my script, what I've thought before, and I'll keep thinking, something goes missing. So I'm going to go and finish off my slides now because I've got a 5-letter acronym. Listen, accept, give. E for explore. Explore assumptions. Your assumptions about her, about the situation. Her assumptions about you, about the situation. What they think a leader should be. Could be different from you. You may have to step into those or disrupt that pattern. And my next letter, what would you like it to be? If it's listen, accept, give, explore, what would you like the last word to begin with? To make lager. And we'll wait till you come back. Sorry, no problem, no problem. They've missed the beer mat. Oh, well, they can get it later. So R is to recycle. The improv word is to reincorporate. So I keep mentioning bananas. I mention characters I've met before, HR, Alice, just because I want today's story to have the elements we all remember. It's a very simple thing. If I'm listening to you, I'm just accepting offers and giving offers, but I also remember what you told me last week, what you said earlier in the meeting. Maybe that's something got lost in a meeting. If I circle back to it, that could be really helpful. Or that idea that didn't quite work last year, if we bring that back, maybe that could be really helpful. Or even if we borrow something from another world. I work with housing associations. And this particular one said, we want to be the best customer service, not just in housing, but in everything. We want to have good customer service, as good as Apple. So it's called recycling from another world. So this is my world, yes and. So it's not just an exercise, Jeremy. You won't say the words, but wasn't it powerful when we made ourselves go with, you said something, I'm going to use that. So it's not just words, it's a mindset. You can actually do a yes and as a no because. No because. Or no but. No, I acknowledge your point, but that leads me to the next thing. Pixar movies. Anyone know Pixar movies? They call it plussing. A lot of them have come from an improv background. And plussing means you can't critique an idea unless you have a positive way of moving it forward. Because if I say, I don't think that's a good idea, you feel personally attacked. If you say, ooh, how about this? Because actually they say, not only building on the idea that's there, saying, well, that's the idea, that's where we are now. How often have you had meetings and discussions where, I wish we weren't here? Pixar say, this is where we are, so we start here. We can't pretend we're not here. So yes, and it says, let's accept this. The data, if you like, the data could be personal, the data could be factual, the data could be technology, the data could be changes in humans' behavior. Caerphilly, I wonder how much Caerphilly life changed when they had broadband. Because we can't really imagine a world now without Wi-Fi. Even I got the sense Natalia in Nepal, she had some sort of 3G, 4G or Wi-Fi. What would it be like without that? So work with it to move forward rather than saying, yes, but I wish we hadn't arrived where we are. So these are my rules of improv. And what's a good way to remember them? And so somebody else came up with this idea, because I used to give people a bit of paper, and now I give out a beer mat. So would you spread those out around people? Thank you. There you go. Hand them round if you can, thank you. And I'll give some to the people over there. Hopefully we should have one for everybody. And Owen said he doesn't have much to do at the end to tidy up. So just in your tables, I want you to think about, when is this helpful? When is it not so helpful? Does this enhance your leadership? Are there moments when actually, no, you don't want improv, you want to be fully prepared, fully structured, fully organized? Because actually I teach presentation skills as well. And often people say, oh, just improvise. And often what they mean by that is, I'll fail to prepare. Bring them back, hand them round. So I think each table has a facilitator, just 2 minutes. When am I going to use this? When might I use something else? Okay, so continue the conversations ongoing, but I've got a copy of my book, which somebody's going to win today, and you'll tell me who she or he is. Did we love Jeremy doing yes and? We remember Paul, though, who was my first volunteer. And we remember Alice as well with her ah, and we loved Nikki as well from her story and her playing the harp. It's hard to decide, isn't it? I should have brought 4 copies. Yeah, so this is invidious. So who do you think should get it most? Jeremy, okay, Jeremy. Round of applause for Jeremy. Hurrah. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. The thing is, he does work for the Welsh Government, so you have to declare it. He's about to buy it. Give it to... Buy it for somebody else. There's a deal on Amazon at the moment. I don't know... If you don't want to buy it through Amazon, I can give you can go straight to the publishers, get a 20% discount if you don't want the postcard from me. But thank you so much, everyone. I want to thank those 4 people as well. Weren't they fantastic? Yeah. Thank you also. Thank you to the crew as well, who've had to jump about as I've given them quite a strange presentation in terms of camera and sound and light. Thank you very much as well. Thank you, Owen, for introducing me. Thank you to Debbie, who's been back and forth, Debbie Olivara, who's been dealing with my absurdities about what I need or don't need. So thank you all very much. Thank you to the summer school, the academy. It's been really wonderful to be here. I'll be here for a couple of minutes if you want to ask me any questions. I think Owen's going to come up and probably give you about a 45-minute presentation on wrapping up everything from the whole week. Isn't that right, Owen? Yes. And if you're in London, come and see the Comedy Store players, and you can see, bring your beer mat and say, oh, that was a good reincorporation, or boo, that was a block. Feel free. Some of you I know have been to the store. Find me on LinkedIn. It'd be great to find out more about how you've applied this, because I often get photos on LinkedIn from people. So I've, for example, a director of children's services said, I have it on my desk, and I had it for the last 10 years ago, you did this session, and I had it on my desk until the day I retired. So that, to me, makes my purpose. So thank you very much for today. Thank you.